Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of the Leading from the Middle podcast. This is the podcast for middle managers who want to develop themselves, develop their teams, and improve their results. I got to talk to a phenomenal leader who is about to do some great things. She's already done great things in her career, but I'm talking about the owner and CEO of Mindful Management Consulting, Amanda Medlock. And Amanda, wait till you hear her backstory. I am hoping that it inspires you because she's got a great backstory. But we got into a great discussion about leadership today and learning and development and how those two intersect. Wait till you hear her advice for leaders on developing themselves today. What are the really most important interpersonal skills that you need? Why are relationships at work so important? We got into a discussion about this. So much more. You don't want to miss a second. Let's get at it.
This episode is brought to you by Kitcaster. Kitcaster books you on top podcasts. How do funded startup founders attract prospects and talent? Podcast interviews. How do entrepreneurs with exits find new deals? Podcast interviews. How do C-suite execs differentiate in crowded markets? Podcast interviews. Kitcaster books you on top podcasts. Click the link in the show notes for a special offer. Celebrate good conversation.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of the Leading from the Middle podcast. I have got just a tremendous leader, and this is from personal experience. And I don't do this too much. I don't get the honor sometimes of talking to people that I've known for a long time. And Amanda Medlock, I'm going to properly introduce her in a second. Has been a leader that I have known for a long time. I would say probably close to 15 years or so when I first met her in some other roles that she had there in the middle of the country. But I can't wait for someone that has been in the trenches as a leader, that has trained other leaders, that has now ventured out into starting her own consulting firm. It's so exciting for me to really get her advice on leadership and really spotlight, her new venture here. And so without further ado, I want to introduce a great leader, Amanda Medlock. She is the owner and CEO of Mindful Management Consulting. Amanda, I can tell you it is just unbelievable to see you today and to hear from you today. How you doing?
I am doing fantastic on this snowy, wintry day.
Yeah. They're in the Indianapolis, Midwest part of the nation. Now, are you still there? Or are you in Michigan?
We're in Michigan
In
now.
Michigan, right? Okay. When I got to know you, you were in Indy,
Mhm.
yes?
You
Okay.
got it.
All right. Well, I gotta tell you, like I said, I've known you for a long time, and I think that the audience doesn't. So let's hear your backstory, and you can walk us through as far back as you want to. But tell us about your career and how you've gotten to this point now of starting your own consulting firm.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you, Kenny, for having me here. I am so excited. I'm so excited to be here. A little bit about myself. So I am from Indianapolis, Indiana, the big city. Grew up in a small farm, moved to the big city, and now we're back to a fairly large farm. But only dogs, only 6 dogs this time. No animals yet, until I can convince my husband. But I graduated from Purdue University, and after I graduated from Purdue University, I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do. I was in the medical field, and I was just like, we're just going to take a little bit of a break. So I actually joined T-Mobile, Sprint, and in those days became a salesperson. Kind of figured out that sales was not necessarily my passion, but I was good at it. So I just kept going with sales and kept growing. And then I found that my passion was helping people. It was getting to know those customers, getting to know their needs, and figuring out how that helped them. And
Hmm.
that's how that kind of correlated with the medical field and why I loved it so much. So after finding this, I found some amazing mentors with the training world, and I was able to go into the training world and learn how to train, how to lead,
Hmm.
how to talk to people. The only downside was I had a serious fear of public speaking.
Hmm.
I couldn't at the time, couldn't public speak. I was petrified to get up in front of 3 or 4 different people. I would almost start crying and shaking and sweating, and then I would just sit down. So one of my mentors at the time, an amazing a peer of mine, he sat me down and just said, okay, Let's just talk about what you're good at. Let's talk about sales. Let's talk about translating these things. And those little tips and tricks helped me to become a trainer for about the past 13 years and
Wow.
helped me really, really grow my passion.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's a little bit of kind of where I started, but all of this, in the past 2 years, I feel like I have become a completely different person. So recently, I've been trying to lose weight. Feel like a lot of us have. It's a lot of our New Year's resolutions.
Mm-hmm.
But the awesome part is this is my degree from Purdue. This is what I majored in. I spent so much money and
Wow.
time being able to be an expert in this field. All these nutritional activities that I had laser sketched in my brain, like the food pyramid, those are no longer a thing.
Mm,
It's now a food
right.
circle. So all of this has changed. And when I learned this, I don't know why it hit me so hard. I felt like my learning was outdated. I was outdated. Everything that I knew in my brain wasn't right. And as silly as that was, I was living in my headspace and just spiraling with so many thoughts of, if this is what I've learned, I can't even apply it now because it's not even relevant.
Mm-hmm.
So the one constant thought with all of this was my mom. She and I are very close, and when anything happens, the good, the bad, the ugly, I talk to her about it, and she always has some kind of positive spin. There can be a tornado and a fire and everything, and she finds something to be positive about. She's
Yeah.
always just so happy. And you don't come across people like that a lot.
Yeah.
My mother-in-law, who is also absolutely amazing, got me this book for Christmas, and it was called The Love Language. And after going through this book, I figured out my mom's love language was acts of service.
Mm,
This is what she did on a consistent basis. She
mm-hmm.
did this to fill her life. She had so much joy. She was able to keep giving happiness because her happiness and her mindset was just overflowing. And
Mm,
at the time, she really understood herself without even realizing how much she was helping others.
mm,
So 4 years ago, she started showing signs of dementia, and I had to learn everything I had to be able to help her memory.
mm.
Games, brain stimulators, I Love Lucy episodes that help just jog some of those memories,
Wow.
books, anything and everything to keep her mind active. But it also had a huge impact on me, and it transferred to me. I wanted to learn everything I could about this disease, about nutrition, how to prolong your life when you have it and when you're caught up with it. Because if my dad gets it, or my brother gets it, or anybody else that I know and love start showing signs, I want to be able to make sure that I can help.
Yes.
And then I found out I was pregnant. And I was like, oh, okay, so now I have lots of multitasking.
Yeah.
So trying to multitask, and I kept thinking about what's happy to me. How am I going to be the best for my daughter? And my biggest thing was I wanted to be able for my mom to meet my daughter. I had to be able to figure out how to keep her healthy, how to keep her strong. And with me multitasking now, I had to figure out how we can make the best impact of this new adventure that we were figuring out. And quite frankly, I was losing my mind
Yeah.
because of all these
Of
different
course.
things going on.
Of
So
course.
I really started contemplating the meaning of happy, talking about my love language, which is positive affirmation, how I can live, how I can be happy, and do that same thing that my mom did. And I think I figured it out. Where I'm happy is working with others, learning about them, and then learning how to live a more impactful mindset.
Mm,
Wish I would have learned this earlier, but you learn it now. Hindsight 2020. When
yeah.
you think about learning and you think about what your love language is, what makes you happy, that's how you're able to give back to others.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where a lot of the consulting, a lot of these new adventures are coming from is I found my happy and I figured out how I can keep learning and how I can also help others because you have to keep learning. You have to keep growing your brain. And honestly, it comes down to how mindful you are about yourself and about others, and from what I learned, how to keep your brain and your body up to date. And
Yeah.
that's where my new adventure is stemming from.
Wow. Wow. What an amazing, amazing journey. And I love the what you said about your mom. and your mom-in-law. I think that is what an amazing journey and what great advice along the way. Let's jump in then to mindful management consulting, because now I think we clearly see what's led you now to this journey. And let's dive into interpersonal skills. And one of the roles I got to know you extremely well on was not only as a leadership trainer, but when you were a trainer. I remember in Indianapolis, whenever I would send a note to some of the managers or something like that, they would say, "Oh, we gotta ask Amanda. You know, we gotta see what Amanda says about this." And it was amazing how much they looked up to you. And then when you became a leadership trainer in both worlds, both Sprint and then T-Mobile, the same thing happened. You just expanded your territory a lot. So interpersonal skills, tell us about that and what do you hope to really hit with that, but also specifically for leaders out there that you have a lot of experience with.
Interpersonal skills, honestly, I didn't know where to start. And that's kind of where mindful management consulting starts, is when you don't know where to start, when you feel like your brain is spiraling out in so many different ways, it's hard to find a place of where to start. Do I start with books? Do I start with trying to grow emotional intelligence or trying to be more active? That's where you just have to kind of take a step back and figure out your why.
Mhm.
My why, as I talked about a little bit before, was my mom, my daughter, my family, my relationships. That's my big why. And once I understood that, that's what helps me to grow. But that's where we have to start. So understanding other people's whys. And that's one of the things I am filled with curiosity. I
Mhm.
love diversity. I love being able to figure out other people's why.
Mm.
Why are you in this business? What are you trying to accomplish? And once we start talking about that, that goes to the interpersonal skills. It's amazing how many people are so full of self assurance that they are so confident in anything. They can walk into a room, immediately just light it up.
Mm.
Whereas others try to just kind of slide in, take a seat, and not be noticed. And it's those kind of leaders, just the dynamic of the two and getting them out of their shells, no matter what it is, to be able to learn more about yourself, but also to be able to have that presence about others. Because it's
Mm.
not just yourself, it's how you're relating to others in the workforce and in your personal life too. And that's all interpersonal skills. But it starts with us, it starts with our why. And we have to figure out that first before we can go to others.
Yeah. Yeah. Amanda, that is just phenomenal advice. What prevents leaders though from doing this? Is it just the busyness of the day in and day out? Because I think to get to know yourself, you've got to have some downtime. You've got to have some introspective. You've got to review your day. I know you and I, these are things that we've talked about in the past with a lot of the leaders that we trained. Um, but what would be some other things that prevents leaders from really getting to know themselves first? Because I love how you're putting that. You're saying get to know yourself first
Mhm.
before you really start to get to know others. What prevents leaders from doing that?
I think fear. A
Mm.
lot of times we don't want to face how we are. When you talk about emotional intelligence, one of the first things is your your self understanding before you can understand the social. You have all these different biases and all these different things that live in your brain that you're not even aware of a lot of times. I tend to go towards these trends or these fashion statements or these different things without even knowing it. And then once I start to sit down and actually realize, okay, why do I always put on the same sweatshirt every day? It's because it's comfortable. It's
Mhm.
because that's my comfort zone. I know it fits. I know how fluffy it is. I know how it looks. That's my comfort zone. Getting out of my comfort zone is trying something different. And I may not know how that fits. I may not know how that looks. And it's scary sometimes. And that's part of the fear that comes in is when you're trying to face some of your, I'm going to say inner demons, your inner dark spots, it's fearful. And then it's the time consuming too, because there's not a lot of time where I can just say, hey, I'm going to just sit down and work on myself for a little bit and just think. We don't spend enough time on ourselves to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And if we don't do that, we can't do that for others.
Yeah, absolutely. You nail so many great things there, and I loved how you weaved in the time thing with folks. But you're really strong on this and passionate on this, that you've got to make time for that self reflection every single day. And so now I want to shift over to the one of the other banners I see on your website that talks about relationships at work. And so talk a little bit about that. And now how does this tie in with those interpersonal skills?
Yes, it's relationship building. You may not necessarily get along with somebody. They may drive you absolutely insane. When my husband and I first met, he will tell you he did not like me. He was not a fan of me. It was not love at first sight. When he and I started dating, his mom was like, "Wait, is this the same Amanda that you that you don't like?" And we
Wow.
joke about that
Yeah.
because that was our first relationship. It wasn't a great relationship. It wasn't necessarily bad. It just wasn't something that was, again, love at first sight. But the more we got to know each other, the more that we started to ask questions, dig deeper, and really get in touch with each other and be honest and honestly go through some of those fearful conversations, that's where we started to fall in love. But that's where the relationships come, is because you don't have to necessarily like each other, but building that relationship, knowing the whys. I got to know him, his family, and all these different things, and knowing his why for why he was at work, why he was doing these different things.
Mhm.
And that really let me into his mind. And when you think about that from just a random person on the street, or you're at the grocery store in line with somebody, think about their why. You look in their shopping cart and the person behind you, and they're like, okay, they're getting milk and diapers and all these different things. And you probably start to calculate in their head, okay, they probably have a kid at home. And you're thinking about these things, but then you're thinking about the why. Why are they here? What are they doing? What's their why for picking this store, and their why for also being right behind me in the store?
Hmm.
Things connect for a reason. And relationships have an amazing way of coming full circle. So, big fan of karma, big fan of you get what you put out in the universe, what you're going to be able to receive. And each of those relationships, sometimes you don't understand how much of a big impact you're having on somebody. Even
Yeah.
just a smile, even just a conversation can absolutely turn someone's day around. So having those relationships and being able to build them and create a positive relationship from every interaction that you have is the most impactful way to keep your mindset a positive one.
Wow. I love all of that. And I didn't know that about you and Christian. That's wow. That is amazing. But now let me follow up and go a little deeper because I've often wondered what kept or what keeps leaders even today, right, from building those great relationships. Um, is it time, Amanda? Is it fear of HR that maybe I'll cross the line if I, build this great? What is it, and how can you change leaders' mindset that to let them know that this is a real foundation of your success?
It goes back to the same reasons that we don't spend time with ourselves. It's the fear and the time, just like you
Yeah.
said.
Yeah.
It's the fear of, okay, what if I don't actually like this person? Or what if I don't spend enough time with this? What if and especially when you're talking about company policies and things like that, what if I say the wrong thing? What if I'm not receptive? What if they also don't like me? That's a big fear for people. Most everybody wants to be liked. There's not a lot of people that wake up in the morning that say, you know what? I don't care if anybody likes me today.
That's
We
true.
want to be
Very true.
liked. We
Yeah.
want to be loved. We want that. When we think about social media, the comments that attract the most are the negative comments, because you're wanting to counteract that and you're wanting to figure out why the negative comments are there. The positive comments are just read and go on. But the negative ones are the ones that get the attention. And
Yeah.
that's part of that fear, but it's also part of the time. So again, to go back to my husband, or even some of my best friends that I have now, it's putting in the time, but it's also understanding yourself, because you
Mhm.
can't get to know someone else and share that side of you if you don't even know what you're saying and you don't know what to bring out.
Yeah, that's awesome. You're 100% right. Um, I want to jump over to personally crafted now, and I love that you mentioned the love languages. That is a really great place to start, right? And to that personally crafts on what's unique for you, right? And I saw that you have disc also as something. I think that's another great place to start. But what prevents leaders from really getting away from this one size fits all cookie cutter approach, to leadership? And how are you advising them to get past that?
Yeah. It's easy. It's easy to send a mass email. It's easy to send a social media post that hopefully reaches 1,500 people in 30 seconds. With technology now being so easy that you can send a happy Thanksgiving or a holiday message and copy and paste it to every single person, it's easy with technology. It's easy just to be I'm not going to say complacent, but it's easy to send it to the masses very quickly. So that way you can reach everybody and let everybody know that you're thinking about them in one short little time frame.
Mm,
But to be personally crafted, one, you have to know yourself. You have to know
mhm,
what you're good at. You have to know the other people and be able to take time to intimately know somebody, to understand their disc profile and that they like being a little more blunt, or they need a little bit more time. And you need to talk about your influential personalities where, hey, how's your mom? How's your wife? How's your dog? How's all these different things? And you also have to remember that, which is also very hard.
yeah,
That's how you create those personal connections.
yeah.
I There's a leader that still works at T-Mobile that I am in awe of because he can remember your name, your spouse's name, your dog's name, where you went to college. He can remember all of these things about you. And he does that for all of the thousands of people that he supports. No matter when he sees you, he always remembers. And that was one of my interview questions that I asked him was, how do you do this? And his response was because he genuinely cares. And
Mm,
that's how he remembers. He makes it a priority in his brain to be able to remember that information so that it's personal.
yeah.
And that's where the personally crafted comes because it's easy just to throw out trainings and say, okay, let's talk about DISC because everybody has one of these four categories and personality traits. But that's where you have to tailor it and tailoring it with strength finders where you have your strengths. You have your everybody has the same 34 strengths, but they're in different orders. They work differently. And that's how you create the impact.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope that leaders at a very young age realize that, or I shouldn't even say young age, just to say as they're starting out, emerging leaders, right? Um, Realize how everything that you just said, how vital that is to their success. We're probably thinking about the same leader with the initials MC, I'm guessing. And
Yes.
because it used to be amazing how he always, when my daughter worked for him for a very short period of time, but yet he remembered every single thing about her. And every time he saw me, he would always ask, that would be the first thing he'd ask. But it was amazing. You could just tell that that wasn't any secret formula, except he really cared. And it was intentional, to your point of what you've been saying with everything. This has just been absolutely amazing. I gotta now get your advice, Amanda, because the true leader that you are, it just, you've done it for so long. So I gotta get some advice on leaders today here in 2024. What would be one or two must-have skills that they have to have? I know we talked about interpersonal relationships. What else did you want to add to that of just must-have skills that they have to have in 2024?
I think it comes down to be mindful.
Mm,
And that's the premise of everything,
mm,
whether it's be mindful about yourself, be mindful about others, be mindful about the way that you're saying things, how you're saying things, how things come across. Just having that mindset of if I say this, how is it going to come across? If I spend this much time with this person and not this person, how does that come across? So just being aware and being mindful will take you places you've never thought. And
mhm,
I do feel like that's one of the big things that have helped me with the relationships, have helped me with interpersonal skills is being mindful of the
yeah,
other person. Being
mhm,
mindful of again, like all the different things, the time, where you go for lunch, how many things you're spending time on, the conversations that you're having. Is it just talking about the weather? Or is it something a little bit deeper that you're going to be able to remember and talk about later?
mhm,
Being mindful about everything you're doing and doing things with intention. When you're
mhm,
having those conversations, when you're making time for people, be present,
yeah,
have intentions, and that's where the mindfulness comes in.
yeah. I love that. That is just priceless advice. How about a skill? Because you and I have known each other for a long time, and I was thinking back to well, I think one of the first times I met you, there was a 6:30 or 7 a.m. all hands meeting called, And then for me, I'm on the road. I don't care. I can get up whatever time. But I remember how people dragged in there and everything like that. And even the great leader that we know said, "Nah, listen, it's non-negotiable. Y'all got to be there. Period." And I'm not so sure that that will work today in the workspace. What would be one or two skills that used to work that you think that leaders just need to let go of today?
It's a great question. I think the treat others how you want to be treated. I feel like that golden rule, even though we learned it kindergarten, preschool, it's not the same. I know one of our previous leaders said it's now the platinum rule, not the golden rule
Yeah.
of treat others how they want to be
Oh,
treated.
that's right.
And to be
Yeah.
able to do that, that's one of the things we have to figure out is how do people want to be treated? Because just because I like the warm, fluffy things and talking about dogs and animals and all these different items, it doesn't mean the next person does. And it
Yeah.
doesn't mean that it's going to relate to them. So just because I figured out some things about me doesn't mean that I translate that to how I would treat others. You have to
Yeah.
treat others how they want to be treated.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah. I love that you said that one because even now that's still so ingrained in us, because we heard that from the time we were in kindergarten,
Right.
and it's so ingrained in us. Um, what do you hope to achieve in 2024?
I hope to continue to be able to make others happy. So part of the consulting, part of the reason that I really wanted to open the LLC was because no matter what I'm doing, no matter where I'm at, I want to be able to have this. I want to be able to keep those relationships alive and keep myself learning. I don't want to get stagnant. I don't want to let my brain pause. I've been off for the past few months, and I've noticed there have been times that I just binge watch TV, and it was great, but I didn't take anything away from that. Even though Bridgerton is amazing, I didn't learn anything. I didn't take anything away from it. But what I did take away is opening this business and keeping my brain alive and helping others do the same. That's what fuels my fire. And to be amazing at this in 2024, to just being able to spread that mindfulness to others, that's my biggest goal, my biggest accomplishment.
I love it. I love it. Absolutely. No doubt. This has been amazing and you are a phenomenal leader. And I'm so glad now that you branched out into this direction. I got goosebumps literally when I first saw that, whether it was on LinkedIn or Facebook, I don't remember. But I said, we've got to get you on. And boy, oh boy, I knew that all of the things that you've talked about over the years now coming together like this is just unbelievable. How can people connect with you, Amanda, and get to work with you?
Yes, absolutely. So there is the site, it's bemindful.org, mindful.org. You can also email me, you can text me, all of that information is on the profile in there. I have Facebook, I have LinkedIn, any communication is possible. And even if you don't know where to start, I didn't know where to start. So it's finding that place of starting that we just take a step back and figure out the why. So again, even if you don't know where to start, contact us. We'll be able to help you with that. We go from everything from resume building to being contracted out to help with some new hire trainings and different development. So we do the whole scope of it.
Wow. Wow. And that'll all be in the show notes. So that's so awesome for those that might listen to this and are driving. Don't worry, that'll all be in the show notes. So you'll have that. Amanda, this has been phenomenal. It is just the joy of my year so far to be able to connect with you and see you again and hear your story. And I'm so glad that you're doing what you're doing. You're going to impact thousands in just the most positive way possible because you've already impacted thousands throughout, your years with Sprint and with T-Mobile. So wish you nothing but great success, in this coming year.
Well, thank you, Kenny. This means a lot. Thank you for having me on, and I hope to just keep the amazing impacts coming.
Absolutely, and we'll stay connected. We'll get you back on in another few months after, things are really cooking for you. But then you're going to tell me, no, I'm too busy. Sorry.
Nope, absolutely not. There's always time.
All right. Well, folks, we're going to leave it there. This has been Kenny and Amanda. This has been the Leading from the Middle podcast. We'll talk to you real soon.